Men, ladies, Race Signals Garage again. Gonna start working on this plate and modifying it so I can get the pump up. We're gonna take care of mounting the dry sump because it interferes with the steering rack right now. So let's see if I can get this in here so you guys can see. So ultimately it needs to go like in this area here, but I don't know if you can see down here, it's interfering with the pump, with the rack. So I gotta go up about probably an inch and a quarter. That'll give us plenty of room, and then we'll also have more room for the lines in here and to run these lines out over. So I don't actually think it's gonna be that bad. I'm gonna take these bolts here, move them down as far as I can comfortably. I don't really like, this is kind of centered, so this is actually keeping the plate nice and tight, but and like not wobbly, but I definitely gotta bring these down to like about here, which also kind of sucks a little bit because it's going to interfere with these bolts or these bolt holes here. So might have to do some retapping, but we'll see what happens. So I was kind of messing around with this, trying to see if there was another method that I could do that might be a little bit easier, smarter, not necessarily easier, but smarter and easier. So I actually took the plate and just flipped it over. So it actually moved all of these bolt holes that were up front, obviously, to the back. I have enough, they come all the way to here, so I can at least get this mount attached. This has got nothing, but I could drill holes in the aluminum plate. But it actually looks relatively close to where it needs to be, because we've got the dampener here that goes on, and then the gear that goes on to the outside. So then the gear goes on the outside here. So that might like legitimately be in the right spot. The problem is that we're definitely still really close over here. But I think that I can get like a super 90 or beyond 90 to come over here this way, and then these shouldn't be a problem. So really, I gotta start and see and get the dampener on there, and then make sure that it's in line, and then we'll have a little bit of adjustment here on this. But I think it's gonna be relatively close there. So I'll get the dampener on, we'll line everything up, and we'll see. And then worst case scenario, at least we know that roughly this needs to be in line with that bolt there. And that should be able to give us a dynamic of exactly what's going on. I can still actually drill those bolt holes down on the bottom and move them on the plate to lift this entire thing up. Alright, so I've come across an issue. So this little adapter plate here is supposed to go on the face of this damper, and the cog then attaches to the front of this plate. The issue that I'm seeing is that this surface right here is interfering with the stock bolt. I could cut the bolt head. I really don't want to do that, but it is a last resort option. Got the bolt cut. It's probably a little bit more shallow than it needed to be, but I mean, it works fine. I can get enough meat with the socket on here to tighten it down. So I'm gonna install this adapter plate next. So I gotta pull 3 of these bolts out, and then there's some bolts that are supplied by Track Tough in order to get this on. I'll put some Loctite on there, and we'll cinch it down, and we'll go by the torque specs that are in the directions. Now that I sent that on with the proper ugga-duggas, I'm going to put this on here. Oh man, I'm a moron. I took the wrong one out. Ooh, I feel real dumb now. So I gotta put this one back in and then pull that one out. Apparently I had a T40 socket, so these are gonna be going to 16 foot-pounds. This is actually an inch-pound wrench, but we can just do 12 times 16. What's that? 160 plus... Oh, come on, brain. What did I just say? Yeah, plus 36. Alright, essentially 200 inch-pounds, which is exactly what this wrench goes to. Okay. So this bolt is way too long. It interferes with the crank bolt on the inside. So I'm gonna have to get a shorter one. I'm not sure why it's so long. I mean, it really is unnecessarily long unless I'm missing something, but I really don't think so. This is all that is supplied with the kit. So, I mean, it should be right in theory. I mean, it's probably about 1/4 of an inch too long, maybe 3/8. But we'll leave it for now so that I can get everything lined up. So, I'm going to get the pulley on here, see where we end up on here, and then we might fiddle with this bracket. It's probably hard to tell in the video here, but right now this is probably exactly lined up with the end here. And I mean, we got plenty of shaft here to mess with. So I'm going to flip this back over, and maybe it'll come out a little further, and we might have a little bit more play here, and then maybe I only need to make some adjustments a little bit on this plate. Alright, I'm not sure if I said this already, so after putting everything and lining it all up, I am going to have to take these bolt holes and move them down about 1 inch. So I'll attempt to use the mill now to do that. Per usual, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I got this on here. I'm going to tighten these down with that homemade spacer because I don't have the right bolts. It'll work, I think. It'll work, I think. So I'll cinch these down, get everything all lined up, probably, totally destroy the edges of this. It's fine, as long as it works. You know how it is. So I get all this lined up, pull this chuck out, and then pretend like I know exactly how to do this. Alright, so I've got this hole lined up this way and also this way. So what I'm going to do is I have to set a dimension over on the front of the machine here at 0, and then I'm going to move it back 1 inch. Okay, I decided on 30 millimeter from the center of the hole to the center of the new hole. It's like it's like right around 1 1/8 inches, which I think is going to be perfectly fine. The only thing that I'm worried about is it affecting this screw hole over here to bolt it down. But worst case scenario, I can re-tap a hole wherever it needs to be for the 4th bolt on the pump. So I'm gonna do it, and hopefully I don't screw this up. Alright, second hole lined up, going down. Alright, now that I've got the holes drilled, I'm going to go make sure it works is relatively square to the block and also to the pump into the cog. I mean, if it's relatively close, I'm just going to send it. I'll ream all these out. I got way more room here now. this is going to sit perfectly on here. I just got to set the bolt heads like it was on the originally on the plate. But yeah, I mean, this is going to come back a skosh to be in line with here, which is no big deal. I got plenty of room there. It'll cinch down. We got our little piece here to make sure, washer essentially, to make sure that this doesn't fly off. But if that's a thing, like, there's a lot bigger issues going on. But yeah, I have no interference now, like a lot of room, probably an inch between, I think it's a pressure adjustment on the bottom here in the steering column, steering rack. And I'm gonna have plenty of room for the pressure fittings on the rack, and I don't even need like a super fancy, like super tight AN fitting for that. That's gonna just be mint. I'm gonna pull this off. I'm gonna bring it back over to the mill and mill out the bolt head so I can actually get this flushed up against here, see what it is, and then I'll have to figure out how to measure for this belt. This is actually like pretty much mocked up exactly where it needs to be. I have the 4 bolts mounted to this plate. This plate is bolted to the block. It's a little loose, but I mean, that's pretty much exactly where it's going to be. It might be more like there, which is actually going to create even more clearance on the bottom. I don't really remember exactly where we left off on doing the dry sump. But I just got the belt tightness proper with these shims that were supplied by it. He actually did a really nice job with making these little oblongs, so you can actually like slip the belt on first with this on and put it on the plate that I made, which made it a lot easier to get the bolts, and they didn't get in and didn't get hung up. The belt, I don't really actually know what the tension's supposed to be, but I think that's probably pretty spot on. I mean, it does not move a lot. I feel like if I added another shim in there, it would probably be way too tight. So next thing I'm gonna do is probably figure out my list for all the lines and everything, and then I will, after I do that, I'll make an oil pan. It has been a legit minute since I have worked on this car. I'm trying to finish up dry sump stuff. I've got the pump already installed. Now it's gonna be to modify this pan. I chose steel over aluminum because they are pretty similar in weight. Actually, I think this aluminum pan probably weighs a little bit more than this steel pan, but I don't have a TIG machine. Well, I do have a TIG machine, I just don't know how to use it, and really it's gonna be just easier for me to do this. This is actually some pretty thick metal on here, but I'm gonna cut it probably square across here all the way off, and I'm gonna make a nice little baffle inside here, so when the oil comes straight across down, it'll actually dump in here, and then it won't be able to slosh back up. So I'll kind of make like a little channel down here, and we'll do that. So that's what I'm doing next. I'm gonna cut this bitch up and go from there. I've got it marked. It's probably really hard for you guys to see, but I'm actually gonna measure from the bottom of the motor to here, this line here, and make sure that the crank doesn't go any further down than that, and make sure that it's not going to interfere with the pan. In the front here, where the cross member is, I do have to go a little bit skinnier, but I do believe that the first piston is right here, so I'm going to measure back as well to see where the center of the first piston is, and then I might have to just taper it a little bit. I did bring this down so I can make my little shelf that I was talking about, and put the 2 pickups right here that will house that will have my little baffle to make sure that all of the oil gets in here and there's no starvation at all. Now that I've got my tool of precision, and this is just barely hanging on in there so I don't bend the flange, I'm going to now attempt to cut this in a straight line without exploding the blade and hurting myself. Wish me luck. Kind of crazy to see how little there is left, but it's definitely going to be a lot of work to make this pretty and then also make it the way I want. I came at this angle just a little bit funky, like this needed to come more straight across. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably run it straight across with the piece that I'm going to put here, and then I'll just slowly fill it in. Gonna now do a little bit of CAD, cardboard adhesive design, and start making my template here. I'm just gonna tack it on and see. Oh man, that is not. Oh, alright, it is pretty flat still. So I want to make sure that this is pretty flat, obviously, so when I put it all together, that it doesn't leak. We're getting really close. So hopefully I'm on the down with that.
The side's leaking out of it.
Alright. We got it together. Little ticky-tackies. It is ugly. It's real ugly, but what's nice is once I get it all, you know, Zeused up there and painted, nobody will ever know. But yeah, we're gonna be able to put our AN fittings here for the dry sump for the scavenge. There's gonna be 2 scavenge right here. I know they're gonna be kind of close together, but it's the only way I could really make it work under the car easily. So if we have any oiling issues, maybe I'll have to modify or see if anyone's got another idea. The nice thing though is underneath the car though, it does go at an angle like this. So it's already naturally going to send all the oil down into this pocket here, and this here is actually tapered on both sides, so the oil is just going to come here and pull down into here naturally, and again it's going to be like this, so I think we're not going to have any issues with scavenging. So I'm going to make sure this bad Larry fits under there. Pray for me. Looking at it now, I probably could have come back here, you know, a little further, but I think it's gonna work just fine. Alright. Pretty ugly stuff here. I was trying to build up on it, and it's really, really bad. TIG would probably work really nice, but I'm using a MIG on some really thin sheet metal. This stuff right here came out alright. It gets really hard to see, and then it comes out really junky, and then it gets a little better. Over here is alright. It's really, really ugly, but it's holding. This stuff again, really, really ugly, but it's gonna hold. I'll just clean it up and paint it, and we'll call it good. As long as it doesn't leak, I don't give a shit. If people are making fun of me because of the oil pan, that means I'm upside down. So, yeah. I lost a bunch of video, so this is going to be a pretty rapid end to this episode, which sucks because I had a lot of like how-tos and things like that, and I'll actually repeat that at the beginning of the next episode as well, but I figured the way that I kind of started the next video wasn't really, I decided to make it 2 parts. But, so, last bit you actually saw was me working on the dry sump oil pan, which is done. I've got all the sump lines done. I've just got to make a mount for these here. These are the pickup lines, and I just wanted to get everything mocked up. That's how I like to do stuff. I like to try to mock it up, make sure everything's going to fit, especially on this level of fabrication. Again, I'm not an engineer, not a fabricator. I'm literally learning as I go, with just a decent amount of base knowledge and a lot of help from friends. So, yeah, the pickup from the tank is all done. The sump lines are all set. Cooler and oil filter mount is all set, as you can see. Again, these are all tacked in temporarily until everything's all mocked up. So I have those lines going through the firewall there, because this is where I wanted to put the dry sump tank. I kind of really like it here. So I've got this little pad here to hold the whole thing. It doesn't move. These little stanchions here, again, to make it so it doesn't move. And yeah, I've got the 12 AN and 10 AN lines here, and I kind of really like the layout. Everything's a little ugly in here, but it'll all be finished and look nice and neat when it's done. So yeah, that kind of finishes up the dry sump episode. Again, I apologize, it sucks because I did some how-tos and everything on the AN lines, and those little mini SD cards, I mean, it just grew legs and walked away. So that's the end of the dry sump episode. Next episode is going to be kind of a follow-up with everything that I've done since then, and yeah, catch you guys later.